It was
Kia ora, everybody, what's up? It is Robett. We have not planned. We're ready to go. Friends are meeting friends, and we're live. Dion, introduce the show.
welcome, everybody. Welcome to Old Rope. Yeah, an idea thrown together by Robett and myself. Yeah, really about what is it? A little bit of poorly misguided advice from some old guys, apparently.
Yes,
Something
it
like
was
that.
your. It was look. It was your idea. I'm just the tech support, and I
Yes.
have some banter in between. And let me introduce our fellow guest. We have Mr. Karl Budge, director and founder at the Experience Live. Is that right? The Experience Live, live
The
experience,
live experience. No, that's all right.
Live experience. Oh, the website email gets me a bit funky from time to time. And then Bruce Pilbrow, Chief Transformation Officer at Yellow. But no one's wearing their business hats today. Everyone is wearing their friend hats, so no one gets. Oh, here, actually, there you go. Is that some spare merch there, Budge?
Yeah, we've got a bit left
Too
over.
soon.
Actually,
Too soon. Okay.
hey, just so we
Really
get
regretting dating it.
just so we get the pecking order right, because I think it's important, hierarchy and everything. Who is actually the oldest here?
You.
Am I? Did we
Yeah.
conclude that? didn't
You've got the oldest children. We know that, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're the oldest.
okay, well, I'm just going to call it out because I'm not ashamed of, because I think I'm very beautiful for my age, to be honest with you, but I'm 52, so.
Oh, yeah, you're old. I'm 48, maybe at 38.
What are you? 40?
48.
And
48.
what's Karl look about 18? How
12
12?
with his, like he's frozen because he's on some. You'd think for the
Well, he's
$1 million.
been-
You'd think for the $1 million mansion in Omaha, he'd have a better connection than the flipping garage backdrop.
Yeah. And
He's
Robett,
out, yeah, it's perspective though.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kick Budge off and make him come back in.
I know how young Robett is because when I'd retired and I was starting to work in some TV show, I went down and Robett was an 18-year-old young punk snowboarding down in Queenstown, and I just have very fond memories of that, Robett. I just remember thinking, man, this dude's got a little bit of X factor going on. So I wasn't wrong.
No, it was Sportsa 2004.
What did you teach me to do? Some sort of
It was
move
like
on my
extreme air time, and then you were interviewing me for it. Oh, sorry, but Budgie's back from Budgie from your 2G. What's going on? I was giving you your Omaha shit. It was
The
fucked up.
downside of being, as Dion rightfully pointed out, kicked out to the garage, so it gets a bit shaky out there.
So, whilst just very quickly, I know we're just shooting it, but so I can't imagine what Robett would be like as a sort of hormoned, ripe 18-year-old.
Just focused.
Well, he had hair. He had lots of hair. But no, he was quick-witted, but very laid back, very popular on the mountain. Everywhere we went, everyone was Robett. It was like, the king of the mountain, So, but I have to give Robett some props. He was a beautiful rider, and I'm an ignoramus on the slopes, but he just had a style and a slickness to his riding that was pretty cool to watch.
And this is bicycles?
Years ago, yeah.
Riding
What's that?
bicycles?
while playing the clarinet, Bruce.
Snowboards.
I've never seen a guy toboggan quite like him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I've done the
so
Google.
good.
Done the Google.
Sorry, and then obviously Dion, this is your show, but we've got some points that we wanted to talk through because I think we need structure. Us the shit just goes way left. The first one, and we won't say who's brought up the different talking points for today, was should we start off with do you want to talk health or do you want to talk sport? Votes?
Either or.
Health.
Go.
Health. Okay. Is New Zealand being too cocky about our response, and why do so many see it as competition with Australia and Ireland?
Well, this is my question. I'll fess up because I follow Raven Khan on Twitter, and shout out to Raven if he's watching. I'm sure he's a million miles away, but and there's this a little bit of a comparing us to Australia and Ireland seems to be another one, and it just occurred to me. I cheekily asked Raven on Twitter if I said just asking for a friend, but is this a competition now or something? Which is ironic for anyone who watched me play sport because I was relatively But I do just wonder, whether we are just getting out in front of it a bit much. I mean, clearly it's a serious issue for people's health. Another couple of people died today. It's no joking matter, but and there's a natural tendency to look across the ditch and look at other places and compare ourselves. But I just I feel like this is a really long road, and I don't want being ahead so far to date or in doing well today doesn't mean you're going to be doing well later. And I think you've got to roll into the health story, the wealth and economy and the impacts that are coming, because they're going to impact health. And I just think there's a much longer story here, and I just don't know that it's healthy. Back to health to be comparing. I think be proud of what we've done, but gee, I get more worried by the day as to what's going to mean for us economically and then health wise.
I think your point on that, Dion, to kick off with, was you talked about on 2 shows ago was, is this the start, middle, or the end, right? And so then the mindset taken into it is like, this is the end of the start, but then we've got the start of a long end. But good kick off.
Yeah, one of the things we've been saying to our people at staff, I guess, is live your own bubble. I mean, there's the rule of the land that we have to follow, but live your own bubble. So what do I mean by that? So next week, some schools will go back and some don't. So the last thing you want is a pack of New Zealanders judging the ones that send their kids to school versus keep them at home, right? So live your own bubble. Yeah. And I think back on what you're saying there, Dion, and always so wise, mate. I think that's the same with New Zealand, right? We're unique. I mean, Italy had borders. It's got borders all around it. We are an island. We are unique. It's it's hard to get to us at the bottom of the earth. So live our own bubble and have we done well? Yeah, I guess the numbers are pointing in the right direction. But I agree with you, mate. I think there's no bragging rights until probably 12 months from now as to how have we done economically, how's the mental health in New Zealand gone. There's a whole bunch more measurables that have to come. So yeah,
I read a really interesting article over the weekend around the impacts of the financial crisis in the early 2000s, or late first decade of the 2000s, and it's a bit of a morbid subject, so sorry boys, but the suicide rates in the UK linked directly to the issues falling out of the economic crisis that followed there, and it dwarfs anything that we're experiencing through COVID-19, and that sort of got my mind thinking in a slightly different way around going, to your point, Dion, this is just the start, and beating the invisible beast, as Mr. Trump likes to call it, the invisible enemy, is only one part of it. But getting back to any form of normality and how we navigate through that process, I think, is the next big challenge in front of us too.
And I think that's where I would pick up, Karl, is that I don't like the language around an enemy or fighting a war, which has been sort of being used in Trump and a few others internationally. I think that a war or an enemy is again its own bubble. This is something that's, I think, a lot more systemic and a lot deeper, and way more agnostic. Like it affects us all differently in different ways. So I agree, mate. I think we live our bubble. We do what we do well, and that's what key.
Well, one of the things I've been big. I think one of my biggest learnings later in life after sport was a little bit about. I just feel very much community is key. To community is key to raising your kids. It's key to building a business. It's key to just having a healthy relationship with the world and society. And I just feel like we're really pulling apart or stretching the ability to tap into and have your communities, and that's how we put that back together, and when the ability to put it back together comes, is going to be really key, because community keeps you on a level keel. It keeps you healthy. It gives you support. It keeps you occupied, it gets you jobs, it gets you connections, all those types of things. So I don't know, I feel like we've got to be very careful. Really just endorsing, I think, what everyone else is saying. I think going forward, we're being really sort of on it,
Devil's advocate to that though is if you're in New Zealand and you're looking out to the world and you've seen so much like death and destruction, and then you've got these positives glimmer of hope. What point has it been drinking too much of the Kool-Aid to being to like, yes, we've blah blah blah, at the same time of like, at some point for some that's going to be good to feel momentum that they're in a more positive space. It's at least some glimmer of hope and positivity. So yeah, I mean, I totally see it on both sides, but I know that when a lot of Kiwis looking at the world like, holy shit, I'm so glad we're here, but then simultaneously, I was talking about it earlier today, when you see that thing with the mark and all, you're just like, oh, we're winning. It's just an instinctual thing of like competition, like the black line wins, mean. So you feel,
But it's also a little.
Go, Dion.
I was going to say it's also, though, it's a little bit of sort of political point scoring at the moment rather than winning. So even when internally the people that are shouting loudest about winning, it's really a shouting down of another opinion. So I don't know that it's true celebration, if you know what I mean. That's part of the negativity that I see with it. If it was genuine celebration for New Zealand, I would feel better about it, but I just don't believe that the majority of it is that. I feel like there's a real angle to it.
It's just not appropriate, I think, to celebrate.
No one seems to. I don't know. For me, you don't start trumpeting by winning qualifying. I kind of feel like that's where we're at the moment. We're in a good spot right now, but there's a long way to go. And
I don't want to cut you off, but my staff will laugh at me because we can't get through a meeting without me tabling a sporting analogy, and I suspect you're a little bit the same.
I've got one. I think my highest mark in school C was 54%, mate. So I'm pretty shit out of other ideas, to be fair. And somehow that was in science, which I really don't know how that works.
No, there's something to that, right? Like people always talk about it's a marathon, not a sprint, and game of two halves, this, that. If you break it down, it's the same thing. Some people are celebrating like it's been, just a quick swim race right to the end of the pool, and the reality is, this shit's going to be a marathon. There's going to be bumps and turns, and there could be second waves, there could be hidden little pockets, whatever, right? Like you just need to, I think, keep more of a even keel to it. But it has been interesting, just instinctively feeling a bit, I don't know if it's competitive against others or proud for yourself. That's it, like for us as unity, don't know.
I really like the way that you had Richard Dallenbach on your show the other day, and that guy's an incredibly bright guy. I love listening to him speak, but I loved the way he phrased it. He said, we may have the most stable ship in the world, but we're as stable as our ship is, it's on a very, very big ocean. And I think we're in this, as much as this is our bubble and we've got to look after our bubble, we're one bubble amongst many, many bubbles. And, until we're all through this, I don't think our bubble's going to go back to any degree of normality anytime soon.
I think the other thing is to pick on Dion's point too, pick up on Dion's point, not pick on it, because it's a good point. There's action and, I'm a big believer, as we are, sort of action and consequences, right? So, our government decided to act quicker than some, and I guess you could argue that the consequences of that are what we're seeing now. But there's no point comparing it to, say, again, where I find that breaks down is when you do compare it to Australia or Ireland, because again, you're not doing a like-for-like comparison. Because we are an island that is separated from everything else, and we have 4.5 million in a very spread out way. I just keep coming back to, let's live our bubble, let's look after our nation the best we possibly can. Our people, as you said, embrace community and think about how we collectively can kickstart this thing again, with a sense of hope. But what's best for New Zealand?
When we get out, and this is one thing I've been talking about a little bit, is the second wave of down may not be health. It's going to be that next wave of finance and commerce, of businesses that shut down, and those who have been on the subsidy that now go back to a work that has a 70% decrease in revenue. Then all of a sudden that drops off a cliff. So we're celebrating the health can be one thing, but then that next wave is then the finances and the community and the mental health. There's lots of battles, not just the invisible virus or war, whatever this thing is. So I think we just need to be mindful that there's the business implications, then the community implications, the mental health implications. There's not just one battle being fought. There's a flipping shit ton of it.
I mean, money collection can be a big one. So the thing is that you might be doing okay as a business right now, and even selling. But if you've got any sort of 20th of the month, I mean, we went through our 20th month the other day, and there's a sense of, okay, how's it going to be? You might have sold the product, but might not get the money. So there's,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but we all read what Deborah Russell's sort of maybe misconstrued comments, right? And you feel for MPs in those situations. Maybe she just got her wording of it wrong and was trying to make a larger point. But I do worry that the people in government, whichever side they're coming from, or there's not a lot of voices for small, medium enterprises out there. And even getting people like this talk of Rob Fife and these other people coming in to advise, that's great. They've got lots of knowledge. They're very, very, very capable, knowledgeable, successful people. But I think, Bruce, you shared those stats. Around 90% of enterprises are small, medium enterprises. 30% of the GDP, 30% of employers or employees work for them. So they're huge numbers in terms of the impact on New Zealand. And I don't know that we've got a voice. And I just thought that comment yesterday sort of probably underlined just there's not the real understanding of what people are going through. And I feel like, rather than getting up in arms about that comment and fighting it and calling names, I think that's a call to arms for people to raise just awareness, just to actually start talking about what we're actually going through out here and what's still to come. I keep telling my staff that the easy part was done, the crisis. 2 months from now, as you point out, Bruce, that's when we've got no customers but we've depleted stock and we've got to build new stock in order to hopefully sell it, and you're paying people their full wages again, and all the rents are come back on, and all of the stuff's all sort of happening once, but there's still no economy. That's when the real sort of challenge is going to come. And so that's all I hear. And people who aren't in it, who aren't going through it, they just don't understand it,
No.
And I think we collectively need to voice that, not to promote our own businesses, but to sort of promote the cause for the greater economy. It's like people need to know how hard it is. I mean, preparing for a global meltdown of this magnitude, when the government didn't even have face masks, is a bit rough, and I feel like, but it's sort of indicative of if you actually think there's 97% of the enterprises, that's really a small number of people running them though. It's only probably 100,000 people in the country who are actually running businesses, who actually really understand how much pain we're about to go through.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's my own personal rant, was it?
No, it's good.
I think
fair.
Yeah, I think just to be, I guess, how do you look at it optimistically? I think what's great here is that we're talking the reality, right? I think to avoid that conversation and not have that conversation, or be vulnerable enough to sit in the discomfort of that conversation, is not a good place to start. I think actually having that conversation like you bring it up, Dion, is a great place to start, because then you can start to think about innovation or other ways of doing it. And when I think of small businesses in New Zealand, I think about how many people they employ. Those people therefore have their own households. They go and shop in their local shops. They buy from their local communities. They have their children. They support the schools. It's really systemic how it runs through the whole. It's not just as easy as bringing in some big hitters and going, we should throw $50 million at it.
No.
Well,
it's a lot.
The reality of us getting back to normal is going to be so bloody hard too. I had a sort of down day yesterday, to be fair. We'd had a big conference call around if we can get back to being getting a tour going, what that looks like, and we started talking through the health precautions that we're going to have to go through and what getting people to gather again is going to look like. And it was just sort of overwhelming, just understanding just how that normal that we once had was not going to be back anytime soon. That where the testing that's going to have to go on, the hygiene practices that's going to have to go on. How do we do food preparation for people? It was really daunting, and it was the first time probably for the 4 weeks that we've been on lockdown that I went from being, man, the events game is going to be awesome coming through this, to go, I still believe that, but that journey is just, it's not a matter of when we get active again. It's actually how we can even survive being active is just so different. And I'm sure that's going to be the same for so many businesses now, that is just going to be a completely different space, and consumers now a different experience. We've got a long way to go.
It's the weight of visual change that will hit them that they may not be aware of now, right? Because after they get back out and they start seeing it, and then, there's just, I think there's a bit of, potential naivety to the realities of what's coming for those that either employees or employers. So for this next bit, then to visually sit there and look at the stock and then the weight and the pressure, it's going to be a wave of gnarliness and heavy.
But it doesn't need to be as bad. I think that the key thing is that we've got to get testing going, right? Because testing's everything. If you can test people and prove that they're not sick, we can get back to work and you can get back to mingling. The whole thing is having people untested out there who you don't know. And I think we're not talking about Taiwan enough. I was in Taiwan 2 days before the lockdown. Like, I should have probably gone into isolation, but it was like the whole thing about Taiwan was I had my temperature tested up there. I was only there 4 days visiting my distributors and going around their sites, and I had without a word of a lie, in 4 days I would have had my temperature tested 50, 60 times. I was body scanned at least 4 times. Everywhere you went, there was hand sanitizer. Everyone was wearing masks on public transport. A little bit of social distancing practice, but not absolutely everyone. But they just had a collective way of getting through it. And I just think that but the key is testing. If you can turn up to work with a fever if you turn up to work and you've got a fever and you go and you get everyone sick, that doesn't work, right? But if you can turn up and someone tests you and says, okay, you got a fever, go home, get tested, go into isolation, taking those out, you can sort of get everyone else back to normality or some level of it. But I think we've got to start thinking about how to do it normally, because otherwise you just can't carry on indefinitely without. But to me, it's that testing. You've got to get the testing going here.
I agree.
Especially if they open up, especially if they start to relax the borders a bit too, right? So, and I guess that's the key thing, isn't it? Is over the next sort of month or two or whatever, is how do we put ourselves in a position that we can catch and act fast?
I was thinking about one of the things, coming back into level 3. I'm going to get one. They're only probably $50, one of those temperature tests. You don't have to touch. It's just shoots a little laser or gets the temperature. But if you can, it tells you whether you're over. And I was just going to make all my staff, before they can come into the office every day, they have to do their temperature test. And if they register, they go home straight away. They don't even come into the office. Get hand cleanser on entry, hand cleanser on exit, everywhere you go. And I think just those small steps, if everyone collectively, if we start to think like that, and they're not as intrusive as you think.
I think the guys, the people from Zuru, I think the Mowbrays, is it?
Yeah.
They were saying that when they set up shop again back in China, that you basically, as you come into work, you basically went past the table and you sanitised, tested, and exactly what you're saying, Dion. There was just became a bit of a normal practice as you walk into work. It
is not nowhere near as intrusive as you think, as you say, Dion. I lived in Beijing during bird flu. If I'm allowed to call that, swine flu, I think was the actual name. And everywhere you went, you had these. You were walking into offices, walking into malls, walking into public transport. You went through heat scanners. If you had an issue, away you went, and it just became so quickly. It became your normal practice, no different to scanning your tube card going through the turnstiles. It wasn't anywhere near as intrusive as you might think it might be. It just was normal.
So I think what you're saying, Dion, is like, yep, you can. The first part of the battle, I guess, in regards to putting some form of control and slowing down the rate of community transmission and all that sort of stuff is a good start. But then I guess the question then is, what is the sustainability going forward, and what are the 2 or 3 things we're going to do on a regular basis that make sure that we continue to have it under control? Because again, the yo-yo thing or anything like that is only going to do more damage to small businesses. So we've started the path. How do we continue that path so it continues to grow rather than sort of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back type scenario? And I think that,
Did you not think that that's going to happen, like, say, when they were very clear around what happened was this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, for you personally in your bubble? Do you think they're going to potentially do that for either mandated or regulation stuff for businesses as well coming out of this? Of like, you have to have hand sanitizer at every single door, you have to have this, like, because there needs to be, if you're saying, mandatory masks, every door you walk in, you need hand sanitizer, and any business, you walk in, you need that. Like, is that how they mandated it, Dion, over in Taiwan when you were there? Like, was it a government thing, or was it how did it work?
I don't know the answers to that. I know some of it was because they had a cell phone tracing thing. So it must have had a level of it. So you went, if you got temperature tested and you went to the hospital, you went straight to a hospital, and then you got your test for coronavirus. If you were negative, so you didn't have the virus, you still got sent home for 14 days isolation, and you had to lodge your cell phone to track that. There was a 3 times a day you got checked on whether you're in your isolation. If you tested positive, you went off to the hospital for the virus or whatever the situation. So then there's definitely but they had the benefit. I mean, Taiwan has had the benefit of the swine flu and the different things. So they've also, got this sort of political situation with China. So I think they are used to or having to sort of defend their borders almost. But we, there's a lot to learn from them. It's a small environment with 23 million people. It's a huge success story. There's no spare land. It's not like New Zealand where you can go and run 150 meters and not see a person, a kilometer and not see anyone. There's people everywhere. So they're doing something right.
That's good. It's a good case study.
But anyway, enough of that, because I wanted Robett to talk to you about. Have you watched this Michael Jordan thing?
I'm halfway through the first episode.
Halfway? How on earth did you stop halfway, Bruce?
I've just been busy, but I just because you guys, most of us except Robett and Karl possibly, but I grew up in this. This was.
No, dude, 98. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I didn't realise, I guess my naivety was even if you just look at the salary scale, out of the $68 million package, 33 of it went to Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
Scottie Pippen got 2.8 or something.
Yeah. 127th highest paid player, and he was the 6th highest paid player on the team. And when Jordan wasn't there, he was the best in the NBA. It is so stuffed.
By a long
it's
shot.
Insane to watch. How intense was Jordan? I can't imagine what it must be like being around that guy. I kind of reckon it'd be equal parts absolutely inspiring and frustrating. He was a fascinating bloke.
I just watched it and was just like, it just made me want to go and play sport. I was just like, I just loved this intensity. Everything about it. It's like, how could you not get swept along with it? I just wanted the whole time to get off the couch and just go. It's just like wasted my whole bloody life. I need to do something, achieve something.
Masters games, mate.
You see how it came out, and then just before it, they were saying, he was like, I'm real worried I'm going to come out like a real bad guy. I'm going to look like an asshole at this. And it's like, dude, if you are the greatest, your headspace is at a different level of shit. And straight away, as soon as you could see the way, like, even just with the footage and just the way he was moving and his energy, you could tell it was like, he was there for one reason, pure dominance. If you're not in the flipping way, get on my level or piss off. It's flipping epic.
But to get your own head to that state where you carry that much expectation and that much weight that you decide you're going to be the best player on the planet, and you live up to it, and you live up to your own
5-6 times, yeah.
I can't.
Who's in the documentary? Yeah, sorry, who's in the documentary? Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan. Is that right?
Yeah. I thought that was one of the most telling comments as well, right? It was like, who are the biggest personalities, or the main people that ever come across in sport.
I remember as a teenager growing up through the 80s, or just hanging on to my teen years. He was like, I think he was like the first guy that got $100 million because of all the endorsements from Nike and everything like that. Like, it was just astronomical. Yeah. And of course, you would have been just a little baby.
I had here.
We bought our son when he was born, little Jordan shoes, and it was not. I can't think of anything like it actually.
Yeah. Well, the legacy still today to go and see your modern day greats, the likes of a Neymar. Here he is wearing Paris Saint-Germain is still sponsored by Michael Jordan or the Air Jordan brand, and he lives beyond in a completely different code, in a completely different era, on a completely different continent. here is one of the biggest franchises in the world, not wearing the Nike tick, but wearing the Air Jordan logo, and it's phenomenal what he the legacy of that man.
Scotty Pippen seems like a really lovely man.
Yeah.
But Budgie, I was keen to ask you, just from a business, to like, because there's the whole thing. Yeah, sure, he signed a $18 million 7-year contract, right? And a contract's a contract. That's the whole argument, that they've always said. But how, from a business perspective, like, just bad business in the end, right? Not to acknowledge, like, that, not to think with 2 years to go, not with 1 year to go, but like at year 4 into that contract, not to just go back to him and say, hey, listen, great, but we need to renegotiate it. You're so short-sighted, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, they can sit back and say that the contract's a contract, but look at what it caused them. Look at what the hurt that business went through, the bad PR, the loss of Scottie Pippen singlet sales. All of that stuff that they would have gone through during that time. It was outrageous, and it was avoidable. And when you're talking, if the bloke was on 18 million, I think they said he was on
2.8 for the first, and Jordan was on 32.
And that going up by another 10, 12 million, it's rounding numbers for those guys. Well, the appreciation and the gesture, the commitment Pippen would have had then to that club, and it blew my mind that didn't come out.
Yeah. I guess though, Bruce, you said there was a salary cap though, right? 66. 66.
Yeah.
So there's probably not that much room left, right? So they actually probably, that's one thing to consider. But yeah, it did seem really.
So we all face that in our everyday life, right? We've all got staff budgets that we've got to stick to and all that. But when you've got someone that's critical to your business success, you find a way. I'm the world's worst event manager. If I don't have a shit-hot event manager next to me, I'm going to be screwed. So I know where I'm spending my money. You've got to do it.
So that brings up a question then. So that I'm just going to segue, but in the same spot. So when you've got staff, you have pay. I mean, if you've worked in corporate, and I haven't done a lot of corporate stuff, but they have pay scales or pay bands. They have fairly formulaic methodology. But you kind of go, what does creative genius look like, or what does someone, how do you? I think that's been the problem with the whole Jordan thing, right? Was that they could have gone through the whole pay band thing, said, look, every player is going to be paid $5 million, but then you had someone there that not only grew the sport and the team and the intensity, obviously he drove it to success, but as a brand, he would have made that club zillions of dollars.
And that was with the growth of it too, right? And that's where it got even more contentious, because it was very clear that he goes, Jordan, the Bulls become a thing, global Beatles shit, NBA goes rocket, and then he still sits on the 7th year, and he's still just getting steamrolled. So you could see it must be such a funky tension of like, I'm here for Jordan, I've got Jordan's back, and we're going to 1-2 this shit out of loyalty to him, but I'm just getting screwed, but I'm going to play the long game. And unfortunately, obviously, got that next spin. But there was no reason in the 4th year they could have gone, okay, let's reset, let's do another long-term one from here and do it. So it was clear that there was a dick move on the other side, but it was
it's hard, because from a pure business perspective, if you think about what Jordan did for the game, you could argue, I'm not arguing this, that he was actually quite cheap.
Yeah,
Jordan, think about what he did for basketball, what he did for the Bulls, the ticket sales, the merchandise sales, what he did for Nike, all that sort of stuff. In regards to a talent off the field as much as on the field, a pure piece of brand genius, you could argue that $33 million was a drop in the bucket. But the other side is the whole, it takes a team. And I think one of the guys made the comment, wasn't it? It was the little short guy. He's got short man syndrome.
Jerry, but it's,
Yeah.
But I felt sorry for him, because he did some dick moves, but he's not here to back him, to justify himself. So unfortunately, he doesn't have a say, right? Like, yes, there's, everyone was saying that it was very clear that, it was very clear that he did a lot of dumb shit, and the ego, small man syndrome, whatever, all that other stuff. But I just felt like it's kind of almost unfair then 20 years later, throw the flipping hammer down, everyone's like, oh, that guy's just a dick, stuff that dude, and he's like not here to defend himself. So you kind of feel like, maybe the owner should have stepped in to say, did some different things on his behalf, and not just, I don't know, there's I never
it's always the peculiarities of sport though too, guys. Maybe I'm way too close to this, but to me, we're so staunch to our rule books. and the rule book, we get ahead by breaking those rules. The best of us are the ones that have gone outside the traditional, and to me, those extraordinary circumstances need to be dealt with in a different position. And when you've got someone like Michael that was transforming the game, he was bigger than the game, and you can argue that no one's ever bigger than the game, but there's certain times where they're pretty bloody close. And how do you treat that? I'm not sure. At what point do they earn their right to be different? At what point do they? It's so hard.
To your point, the dynasty of the Bulls was as important to the NBA as anything, right? So if Jordan had just gone for the money everywhere around and won 6 or 7 titles, but for 6 or 7 teams, he wouldn't have. I would argue, wouldn't have had the same impact. There's something about a dynasty. And that's where Scottie Pippen and all the other guys who came in behind it, we're really, the overall package of that dynasty, the Bulls dynasty was so great for basketball. And you forget now that the NBA wasn't anything,
No.
It was in the doldrums,
Yeah, it was a poor cousin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
it goes a step further. Imagine, let's see what they did for the city. What they did for Chicago and the long-term effects for Chicago was just so grand. And that's why to me, I just don't, and I sit in numerous governance roles in sport, and I just see we're so, that little book that tends to grow in size every year, and we're so wedded to it. And I don't know, I think that you need to have a special set of circumstances that enable a little bit of flexibility with it. You've got to have parameters, and salary caps are sort of for keeping competitive tension and alike, but there's also got to be some flexibility to make sure that your business grows. And you can't you can't always just be closed off.
Well, it's interesting with the All Blacks.
Sorry, you go.
It's interesting with the All Blacks right now, because you could argue that on a much smaller scale, that say Richie McCaw over the last the last decade or whatever it was that he was in, was sort of our version of he brought the All Blacks. People forget that the All Blacks were at their lowest ebb when he first was in the captaincy role. They were very popular. They people thought they were greedy and overpaid, and there's a whole lot of bad press. People forget all of that. He pretty much turned that around, that image around, and brought what he managed to do with the All Blacks was he brought the history of the game. He didn't isolate people. He didn't do it at the expense of the people behind him. He actually brought them all with him. So, and you've got Jock Hobbs and Sean Fitzpatrick and all these guys, not a bad word to be said about them. And you sort of look at the rugby right now and you sort of think, shit, if ever, and not only rugby, all the sports, if ever there was a need for characters like that to step forward in their sports and sort of to try, because there's going to be the business of sport going forward. To your point, Budge, trying to run a live event these days is going to be virtually impossible. For the foreseeable future.
I remember the first time I met Jock Hobbs. Actually, great New Zealander he was. John Graham. So John Graham was on my board. He was my board chairman, and I just started at this organisation, and I still am a massive Hurricanes fan. And John Graham says, "Oh, Hurricanes are playing Auckland." He said, "Do you want to come to the game? Good old DJ." "Oh yeah, I'd love to. Thank you." And I had no idea. I didn't really click who John Graham was. And so I rock up wearing full Hurricanes gear, just like a complete super fan. And I get look at my pass, go, "Oh, that's pretty flash." And my wife's with me, and we walk in. In the next minute, I'm sitting right in the middle of Auckland rugby. I've got BJ Williams on my right. I've got Sir John Graham on my left. I've got Jock Hobbs behind me. And I'm the only guy, and Dalton and everyone there, and I'm the only guy wearing the Hurricanes gear. And we won.
Very proudly too, mate.
And I lost my voice from shouting so much, but I turned around and I met Jock Hobbs, and he shook my hand and said, "Yeah, good on you, son." Memory. Yeah. Anyway, but my question to you guys, I guess, from a sports perspective, is how do you, because if you think about, well, we talked about it a little bit about this last week, didn't we? Kind of going, we've got a couple of sports in New Zealand that get a lot of attention, and obviously funding and things like that. And then yet we have the best rowers in the world, and other sports like that. And you kind of go, what's fair and equitable? Because you could argue that the rowing team does, wouldn't do as much as the All Blacks for New Zealand in regards to financial GDP or whatever, but it's still significant to what we do. And how do you make that fair in a way, but also recognise talent, or what talent brings to the table in regards to growing the sport, growing the brand, whether it's your business. When you get your superstar on your team and they take your business from $1 million turnover to $2 million turnover, of course you want to reward them, right?
Yeah.
Because the more they do, the better it is for you. So it's a tension, isn't it? It's one of those things. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'll keep watching the series and see how I feel after the second one.
Yeah. But those people are gold, right? In your team and in business, like a good team, a good performer in a business. Like I've only got 10 staff. One really good performer just changes your whole business,
and vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. Yeah. And it's just incredible the impact, right? But I remember playing cricket teams were like that. Like when you got the majority of your team genuinely engaging and being performers, that team was a great team. There was not much could stop you. But when you only had 3 or 4 of you who were like that, it was just so much harder. Just wasn't enough momentum to lift it up. And so that's why watching Jordan the other night, you just would have loved to play, just be around this droppings, just to pick up the juice, the sweat. It was like, it's just those people. I played with a few people like that back in the day. A couple of team members and teammates, and they just lift you.
I mean, is this our Jordan of New Zealand?
Oh, yeah. No, below the belt, mate.
B, can you just put that up? I didn't quite see it. B, can you just put that back?
Shut up, Robett.
You've now got full screen.
No,
can I ask? I always wonder.
Oh, here we go. He wants a signature, Dion.
I did have a massive fandom going on for Dion when I was a kid, to be fair. But what was it like when you first were in a PlayStation game, or back then a Sega game? What was it like to see your name with kids playing you all around the world?
Highly offensive, because the first time I saw it, I was bowling medium pace donkey drops. I was one of the easiest to hit. So it was just a highly offensive. I've wiped it from my memory that I was even in one, Budge.
I can distinctly remember as a kid playing opening the bowl of Dion Nash.
It was like there's only enough room in those games for about one player in each one or two players in each team, unfortunately. Like pawns. The rest of us become pawns. No, but yeah. I mean, honestly, the short amount of renown that I had, it's good and a bad thing, I think. Like, in business, it's been really good. Mainly, people always ask in business, was it useful or has it been good? But it's only really been good for not for what people I don't think would think. But the reason it's good is I felt natural confidence to ring people up and ask for help.
Right.
And that was the single most beneficial thing, I think, from having had some renown or having had success in that previous sport. The single biggest thing was I just didn't hesitate to pick up the phone and ask for help to someone. But for the flip side of it is, when I worked at 42 Below, the first job they gave me was to do corporate vodka sales. I had to go out for 4 months and flog vodka at Christmas time to all these corporates. And nothing breaks your pride than walking into some corporate middle management guy who didn't really think much of your bowling back in the day. and you got the chance to listen to your whole pitch for 20 minutes, and then at the end of it just go, you know what? Nah. And it was just like, I had to do that over and over, and I was just terrible at it, But the point is that in sport, everything comes to you, and you end up, because you're trying to protect that little bubble that you're in, you end up sort of blocking people out and sort of almost creating a barrier between you and people. Because in business, it's the complete opposite. You've got to go out and get everything, You've got to go out and knock on doors. And I found that the biggest challenge to change that around,
It's good, man.
Anyway,
So, guys, what do you think? I'm going to bring us back to small businesses. I don't know why, it just seems like a cool thing. But what do you think? And you touched on this in the first old rope we did. Well, it was kind of a new rope there. It's becoming older by the week, our rope. But Dion, you picked up on it, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I guess, like, we talked about the fact that we've got through, or we're starting to get through sort of the infection and all that sort of stuff, we believe, at this stage. And then there's the business realities that are financially going to hit potentially, and for some businesses, obviously. Well, I think that's the reality. The mental thing, it's the thing that probably plagues me the most at the moment, I guess, in my thinking is kind of like, how is this going to affect some of the stats and some of the realities, like violence at home, family violence, and I don't want to be on a downer. I just go, I don't know, how do we reshape or refocus ourselves? And I think sport has a big part in this, by the way, so I think there is a bit of a segue there. But, how do we get our sort of iconic New Zealanders, or New Zealand in general, just to refocus on the things that really make a difference, which is people's lives, family violence, youth suicide, all that sort of stuff. And I think sport comes into it, but that's the thing that's plaguing me the most. So I think that's going to be the biggest hangover from something like this. And that's what worries me the most, actually.
I think finding a sense of belonging is going to be so important, no matter where. That's going to be in work, it's going to be personal, it's going to be in family, it's right the way through. And whether that's sport, whether that's food, whatever it is, that's that helps navigate your sense of community and your sense of belonging. I think it's just going to be so critically important. And as soon as we can open up some of those things, I'm obviously biased with that, but I think as soon as we can get back to being able to live those experiences that make us feel full and make us happy, I think is going to be pretty important. And I think that does need to be prioritised just as much as the economy does.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah. It's weird. I heard the Grant Robertson talking about helicopter, money and things like that. There was just a conversation that had come up, and it's weird. That comment has played mentally on me. I don't know why, but there's something about the dependency on what, or the expected dependency that's going forward. When even at this point, the government's talking about, handing out $3. To me, it was a really stressful. I've stressed on it because it's sort of like, this dependence on the government or dependence on external, and I feel like there's that has a bigger impact on mental health than people give it credit for. I think people just want to feel useful, and we just want to feel like we're earning our dollars. We just want that, because that gives you a real sense of providing, gives you a real sense of achievement, all of those really little things that you take for granted. And when they're taken away from you, that creates a sort of mill pond. And I think you're right, Bruce. I think we have to be really, really careful that we make sure we're aware of we're keeping people stimulated and giving people opportunity to earn that back, But
it's that wave of you're talking about the first one of the health rolls first, and it's like a short-term thing of 6 weeks cool lockdown, and this business thing is going to be a couple of months or year, whatever. But the long tail is the relationships, the community, the people, the mental health, like that can last years and a lifetime for all these moments that people are having right now, right? The relationships are breaking down and all the rest of it. And from right at the get-go, and I think I talked about on one of the other shows, is I put a thing on LinkedIn. I was like, it was March 24th, and I was like, oh yeah, 9 months time, haha, it's gonna be so many Christmas Day babies, all the couples at home, yada yada yada. And then first comment was like, yeah, and increase in domestic violence and divorce. And the incel was like, shit. And then I talked to Lisa King, and then she's like, half the kids that we feed with Eat My Lunch, they go in, home is the danger, school is the safety. You're like, shit. And then you start thinking of all these other things, and that's not they won't be affected if they're safe from COVID. They are then at school, and their living situation won't be the same. But what it means for the lives that get split apart and the relationships that go this way, and the amount of other long-term mental thing, it's the long tail on this is the actual. Maybe that's the biggest silent killer of potentially this whole thing, right? Yeah. And it won't be potentially just medical. So I
think those health benefits are so interesting. Oh, sorry, boys. Those health benefits to me, like there's going to be more people affected with their health than those affected with COVID-19, and I think that's kind of the piece that has been missed at the moment. It's it's the mental health. It's let's hope it's not domestic violence and all that. There's far bigger ones than just the virus, and understandably the virus is getting so much of the attention. But I do think that there needs to be that real focus on our overall health, because that's the pathway out of this is long, and I think that's going to be our real battle.
But the thing of it from a brand new,
right? Sorry.
So you go, Bruce.
I was just going to say there could be an opportunity here, because I've run a couple of charities, and I've sat on a few boards of a few charities that do some incredible work, and I can be highly critical of the charity sector, and my criticism comes from, well, I remember when I was CEO of Canteen, for example, I stood on Grafton Road and I looked at our building and our staff. We had one CEO and a financial director, etc. And then I looked down the road, there was child cancer, and they had a building and a CEO. And just down the road from that was Ronald McDonald House, and they had and we're all out there hunting. I mean, there's 36,000 charities in New Zealand, and don't get me wrong, there's some really amazing work out there. But you kind of go, we're only 4.5 million people. If we could somehow collaboratively get together and go, you know what, we're just not going to let the second virus come through, which is around these sorts of things. I don't know. I just think we're a bit sort of. I think it's a real challenge to our social side of New Zealand. I think it's a bit shit, to be honest with you. I think we actually need to see this as this is a pandemic in itself in our country, and I think it's only going to get more. And somehow they've got to. We've got to frickin' turn that thing around, and so it could be an opportunity, right?
Well, I also think it's like anything with these things. I think, Bruce, it's like who can we affect? Well, we can affect our own household,
yes,
then we can affect our own immediate businesses, and that's a pretty good start, right? That's let's just say that's 50 people, 60, 70 people each.
100%.
Right there,
Yeah.
And so I just think we just got to start at that. I was just, as you were talking, I was just thinking one of the great things about this lockdown has been I've lost a bit of weight. I've been an hour exercise each day with my kids at the park.
Actually, going to talk about that, because first old rope, you were just looking a bit heavy on it.
I'm slowly morphing into you, Bruce. I've got if I wear my glasses and it's just like paying a little bit of.
You're missing the hat, bro. Hat and headphones, bro. Just go.
Normally I don't have this here. It's just this is lockdown here.
Can try from disaster just do a bit of mascara? I could actually kind of pull mine out.
When I can retire when I get the hair product that grows it back, right?
I'm an investor.
I hate to finish this off soon, Dion,
my last point is I think that one thing I can do is I can encourage my staff to take or give my staff an hour a day for fitness, exercise, mental health.
Yeah, but see, that's exactly what I'm saying is how do we start? Could we come out of this and all of us take on sort of an effective altruistic perspective? And it might be start small. It might be just at home. We're going to try and have a dinner at the table once a week or twice a week. At my workplace, I'm going to actually work with an umbrella or something, and provide mental health support for my staff and pay for it. Pull a couple of $1,000, whatever it is, to it. Could it be as small as that? Because I think at the end of the day, if we just look at it in regards to EBITDA, sales in and sales out, we don't actually put the human capital investment in that space, even if it's at a small business like yourself, Dion. Then I think the effects, long-term effects on your businesses, but also your community would be huge. And that's I guess what I'm saying is that come out of this and think of your bottom line EBITDA. Absolutely, you've got to do all that. I get all that, but I think the human investment is going to be another key thing. Yeah.
I think what the cool thing is if you rewind back 5 or 10 years, the mental wellbeing budget wouldn't be there. The John Kerwins, the Mike Kings, the Craig Hudsons, all these different vehicles, they've created enough talkability to be able to talk about it now. There's a vehicle for that. And not that it's the new entrepreneurship, that it's cool to talk about mental health and whatever, but I feel that it is very clear that there is enough awareness around this issue now and enough talkability with those that actually matter to be aware of the longer tail. So I think we should all be, I guess, hopeful and a bit more forceful around the then what's, right? Which I think is pretty good.
And if the four of us start with exactly that attitude, Dion, what can I do right now and affect in my circle? Then probably between us, we're probably going to affect a couple hundred people, right?
Exactly.
That's a freaking good start.
Budgie, last words. You've had some great banter today, mate. Well done.
Nice to meet you, man. It's been good.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Oh,
He's not.
he's not
You lied.
I just got questionable friends, mate. One thing that you said that sticks out to me is you said there's 36,000 registered charities in New Zealand.
Yeah.
How many of them rely on trust funding for their annual operating procedures? And that's an industry that has been wiped out more than any of us. I'm pretty sure no one's down at the pokies betting at the moment.
Right.
And so, the hurt coming out for that industry in general coming up as well as the wider ones that gambling industry does support. There's some pretty scary roads ahead for a lot of us in that space. So a lot of work to be done at that club and community level, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Think every week we need to wrap it up now, but we need to do recaps on every episode of The Last Dance every time. We need to lessons learned.
Can I just finish by saying I just think that Bruce has really lowered the bar with that screenshot. I just think that's right below the belt. I'm going to spend the rest of the week just going researching Bruce to try and find something.
Oh, there's plenty.
He plays the clarinet. Well, I've got some. I'll talk to Wifey. I'll get some.
Bring it on. I'm up for it. See if you can find it. There's a particular shot of me and Paula Bennett on and it is the ugliest shot of me you've ever met. And my kids pull it out all the time just to make me feel terrible. I look terrible. So if you can find it, you can show it.
I'm not getting involved in this because Robett and I have got some terrible ones on each other, and so I'm just going to stay well clear. Man, you're a great mate, Robett. I freaking love you, fella.
No one is ever going to mess with me. I've got I'll go down first, but I'll bring all my mates with me. It'll be fun. Dion, finish us off, buddy.
Just stay cool out there, like a couple more weeks, right? Let's hang tough and look after each other.
Love your work, brother. Shot boys, good banter, good yarns.
See ya. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.